Hello everyone, what's up? My name is Amir Qureshi and I want to welcome you to Unfolding Destiny, where we teach you how to build your life within the context of your true identity. Today's topic is an interesting one. Do soulmates exist? Well, if I were to give you an answer from a 30,000 foot view looking down, I would say no, they do not exist. I don't like the idea of thinking about there's this one person who's just for you out of the 7 billion people in the world. That's not to say that you don't commit to one person. I'm just saying that there's so many options out there. It's hard to tell whether or not a soulmate exists. But what I do think is that there are people that you have degrees of compatibility with. And it's just about finding the right person that fits your degree of compatibility. Now, before I dive into that, let me tell you the story of Keyshawn. Just to kind of, set the rhythm of this conversation. So a few years ago, I was going over to the Forbes conference. This was back in 2016. Now, I was scurrying about. I had to get my luggage together. I was like last minute packing, and I had to grab a Lyft at 3 a.m. just to get to like my destination. There was a lot going on, and I had to prepare for my flight. I was up all night just like figuring things out. I mean, it was a big conference that was about to happen in Boston, no less. But what ended up happening was I grabbed a Lyft, and my driver's name was Keyshawn, and he took me to my destination. But we had this like incredible conversation. Now, at the time, Keyshawn was 35 years old. Not old, not young, but he had wisdom in his life. I'll tell you that much. We started talking about like what we do in life, and he told me like how he takes care of like rental properties and that he's a Lyft driver on the side. And then I talked about my aspirations and my ambitions, and we connected, and the ride was over, but we must have sat and talked for another 30 minutes or so. But there's one thing that I will never forget from that ride, from that conversation. Keyshawn said to me, and he kind of just stared off into the distance, just kind of looked out into space as he spoke with me. And he said to me, during my life, I chased a lot of women, went after a lot of relationships. I was the guy, Keyshawn said, I was the guy that if my friends invited me to the club, I was the first one there. I never said no to a party. And now here I am at 35 years old driving Lyft. Not to knock on Lyft or Uber drivers, but this is Keyshawn talking now. I'm just telling you a story. Now here I am at 35 driving a Lyft car, and he said that he would look back at his life, and if he were to meet like a magical fairy or a genie who gave him the ability to start back over again, if he could just go back to being 20, he said, Namir, if I could go back to being 20 and not party, not chase after girls, not chase after relationships, not go to the club, and if I could just and put my work in and just put blind the rest of the world, and if I knew that by 35 I would be a millionaire, I would just take that back in a heartbeat, and I wouldn't do any of those other things. I would just focus on myself and my own journey, because the rest takes care of itself. So that story there, it stuck with me, and it's something that's almost like a parable to my life. And I want to kind of just go a little bit more deeply here, because this whole concept of soulmates and I guess relationships, I mean, I don't chase anyone. These things, they matter to a lot of other people. They matter to people in general. I guess that's part of the hero's journey to find someone, but it's really complicated if you do it ass backwards. So the wrong externals and the wrong people that you meet equals danger, okay? So you got to start with yourself and figure yourself out. What do I mean by this? So, all right, you're chasing after the money, the cars, the relationships, the drugs, and all that type of stuff. And it's exciting at first, I guess, but it creates this false persona of who you are. And then if you don't spend the time to figure yourself out, then you're basically just like throwing darts in the dark you're throwing darts at a board in the dark. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. And who knows if you might even hit the dartboard. I mean, you're just kind of taking shots, right? And so when you're on this journey, the one thing, if you look at my videos, if you pay attention to them, there's one theme that I tend to have in almost every single video, and it's about self-exploration and self-discovery, figuring yourself out before you chase all these external things. That is the most important part. If you take a look at even finding someone or finding the right job or making a lot of money, that's like the tip of the iceberg. That's like the top 10%. There's like 90% buried beneath the ocean, or I guess floating beneath the ocean, that you still have to discover. Otherwise, that icing on the cake, it doesn't last. It's fickle, it's fleeting, it's ephemeral. It cannot be brought into the context of your life and be sustainable. And it's almost like gambling at that point. You're just playing the slot machine over and over again. It's okay during this journey of self-discovery that you have relationships with friends and family, have coaches and mentors and teachers, because they keep you grounded. And the important thing is they don't keep you locked down. You're not just stuck. It's not like you have one teacher and you can't have another teacher. No, you go from one class to the other class, from that class to the next class, then you go to the gym class, and you have cousins and uncles and aunts, and you have this whole neighborhood and village of people who can take care of you and nurture you and help you to grow, that you can ask questions to, but you're not tied down to them. You don't really have any major civic responsibilities to them. And that's super important for your own psychological growth and maturation. You see, when you start to chase after relationships instead of, when I say because relationships I just define as friends, family, all that stuff. When I'm talking about romantic relationships and stuff like that, it can put you down on a really, really bad path when you're starting to chase chemicals and all that stuff. And it's like that high, it's like that slot machine thing. And it's cool, I guess, in certain ways, but it could also be a major distraction. It's not something that you can really sustain long term. So the best thing that you can do is work on yourself, and as you work on yourself, you start to find people who have a higher degree of compatibility with you. It's interesting, right? The more you focus inward on your own journey and figuring out who you are at the core and figuring out what your likes and dislikes are, the more time you spend with yourself, then the 7 billion people out there suddenly become smaller and smaller and smaller. You don't have to chase after much. You realize that you have these idiosyncrasies, you have these little quirks and these little blemishes, and they're all okay. They're part of who you are. They create the greater mosaic of your own overall identity, and you can't really hide them. You don't want to just sweep them under the rug because they're going to show up later on anyway. But to be in the totality of yourself and to know who you are, that helps you navigate all those weird decisions later on in your life. And so what I would say is your reputation along the way is everything, right? So if you start to chase after these things, if you start asking questions like, hey, when will I find the one? Or where's my soulmate or my twin flame? Before you're ready for it, you're setting yourself up for failure. The thing is, as you build your life, what's going to happen is your reputation will increase. And then you get into this weird dynamic where you're still figuring yourself out, you're still building your blocks, you're still building yourself up, and as you build yourself up, you start to have more and more that you could lose until, drum roll, until you become someone who has everything to lose. And then what happens at that point if you meet some floozy, or you meet someone who has nothing to lose, who has absolutely nothing to lose? They don't really care about anything. They don't care about themselves. They just live in the moment and kind of do whatever they want. But they might be attractive. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're just attracted to them and you think that you can probably build something with them. The fact is, they don't know who they are and you're still figuring yourself out. This person is going to become like a leech, and they're going to drag you down. They're going to destroy you because they have nothing to lose, nothing worth losing. There's nothing that you can take away from them, but they can take everything from you. It's really bad. So the more you build yourself up, you want to take care of your own reputation and guard yourself from leeches and people like that who interestingly enough, are probably more accessible the more you build yourself up. But just, you got to realize that with great power comes great responsibility. And so along the way, as you're building yourself up, I'm not saying that you have blinders onto the entire world. No, go to the gym, have friends, have a social life, have a job, have basic skills that you learn along the way. Learn to market, learn to sell, pick up these crafts, but don't do anything that's going to take you so far off your purpose that it completely just like distracts you from it. And that can even mean in the sense of like locking down into like some sort of school that you're not passionate about. If you're not passionate about engineering, but you're looking at it as a means to an end, I mean, 4 years of school is fine, whatever, but just realize that during those 4 years, you're not going to be able to fully focus on your own purpose. And maybe that's what you will do, actually. Maybe you'll go to school, you'll get your engineering degree, and you'll focus on your purpose at the same time and your own self and figuring that part of yourself out. But when you're on that path, it's very hard to also bring in more responsibility into your life. Trying to find a soulmate or like your twin flame and trying to manage that relationship while you're also figuring yourself out, it's kind of a recipe for disaster. Now, there's also caveats along the way. What if your mission in life is to just discover yourself through people? And there's many ways to finesse it. But my thing is, first, before you try to involve other people in your life, figure yourself out, figure out who you are in isolation, kind of just learn to breathe and just know your own energy. God, just relax. You have plenty of time, and if you rush the process, it'll only screw you up in the long run. Listen to yourself, but also realize that, okay, so, right, soulmates don't exist, but there are degrees of compatibility. But also, let's just be logical here, okay? So, social class does exist. And also realize that, okay, you get paid money, right? Money, monetarily, in life to the degree at which you're able to solve problems. If your ability to solve problems is you bagging groceries, then you get paid for that. If your ability is to clean up floors, then you get paid for that as well. And if that is your mission in life, so be it. That's fine. Just keep in mind that if you're getting paid, like maybe most janitors, I don't know what every janitor's salary in the world is, but if you get paid like a janitor, if you get paid like someone who bags groceries, and you don't have much income in your life I'm talking about averages here. I don't know, there might be a millionaire janitor out there somewhere. But if you get paid like the average grocery bagger would, then there isn't really much that you can bring into your life on top of that. And it might be hard to find someone who has a high degree of chemistry with you and compatibility and isn't another social class. So you might find someone who's also another grocery bagger, things of that nature. So realize it gets complicated, right? So if you really want to find someone who's not just like compatible with you, but is amazing, has their stuff figured out, is driven, has a lot of their own emotional turmoils resolved, whatever, and maybe it's prosperous, maybe it's successful, maybe it's highly educated, then you kind of realize that you also have to be of that caliber as well, or you have to bring something of value to society as well. I mean, there is a reason why, this might get a little nuanced here, but I just kind of have to put this out there. Like, you look at Gisele Bündchen and she's married to Tom Brady. I mean, there's a reason for that. Yes, they're highly attractive people. They're highly successful. More than likely, now there's always, exceptions to the rule, but someone like Gisele Bündchen probably wouldn't be marrying a grocery bagger. If you remember the show Lost, it was out years ago. There was these two characters. I think they were married at the time in the show, and the wife was an attorney, and the husband was a burgeoning comic book artist, I believe. And as much as they loved each other, it just didn't work out because the class wasn't exactly the same. Now, of course, these are movies and shows, and there's references, and there's always exceptions to the fact, but what I want you to know is at least let's not be blinded to the fact that there are things known as social class. Social status does play a factor, that your wealth, your health, your physique, your musculature, your beauty, your status in society, your level of education, and your sociability, like how well you can make friends and all that stuff, it matters a lot in the sense of being able to find someone that's maximally compatible with you, but also it would be considered to be out of your league, if you will. Remember, Gisele Bündchen is married to Tom Brady. She's not married to the grocery bagger. Not that there's anything wrong with either of those statuses, but just realize that there's different levels to this. Meek Mill said it in his song, What Levels? I think that's what it's called. He said there's levels to this game. And there are. So you cannot be blind to that. You can't be delusional. In real life, it's not often that the princess marries the frog, and it doesn't happen. A better story would be like the Count of Monte Cristo, where you get this one guy who's almost nothing and he becomes a somebody. But I completely digress. All I want you to know is that there is value in self-pursuit. And the more you can internalize your journey and figure out who you are, the more likely it is that you're able to weed out all the things that don't align with you. And when you do meet somebody, you're able to bring your full presence of mind to that conversation. Your idiosyncrasies, they actually are now seen as attractive. Your blemishes, your quirks are seen as attractive. Everything that you do is seen as your attractive quality because it's all enmeshed in the greater idea of who you are. So I do want to leave you with a couple points because I want to give you some sort of direction, because if you've been listening this far, there should be a question on your mind, which is like, all right, if I focus on self-exploration, if I try to figure myself out, and if I kind of just go on my own journey, how do I know when I'm ready? Do I have to wait until I become a rock star or become super successful, got my PhD, my medical doctorate? Do I have to wait for all these things first? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. For some people, the journey is much quicker than other people's. What I am saying is that you have to figure yourself out to the degree at which you're finally ready to become public facing with your identity. Ooh, that's powerful. Let me say that again. You're ready once you can become public facing with your identity. Now, what does that mean? Okay, I'll give you an example. Let's say you're in school, you're switching majors, you're trying to figure yourself out, you don't know who you are. The worst thing you could do is start partying and start socializing, fraternizing, and doing all this stuff just to distract you. Instead, just focus on yourself. Once you kind of realize that, all right, I really love engineering, then you start to go down that path. And even then, don't become public facing with it. Don't just tell someone, oh, yep, engineering, that I'm about to be an engineer. That's it. No, go through the journey privately. Take a few classes, figure yourself out. As you start to realize more and more that engineering is your passion and it's the thing that you do want to pursue, then you start to put messages out there. And as you start to realize that those messages are first you start sharing those messages with friends and family in private. They're your confidants. They're going to tell you what they think, what they don't think, what they like, what they don't like. And then next semester, you're no longer pursuing engineering, you're pursuing sociology or whatever. But let's just say you stayed the course and now you are just becoming more and more passionate about engineering. There's going to come a point when you're going to actually be able to become public facing with that decision. And more so than that, there's going to come a point when you're going to be able to be consistent with that message. You might start an engineering blog, you might start putting posts on Facebook, but you're going to start putting out content and people are going to be receptive to it. People are going to love it. And it might not be everyone overnight, but the value is that what you find, the value you get from sharing this side of yourself is that it doesn't matter if no one in the world responds or reciprocates. It's the fact that you actualized and expressed a part of your identity. And that's the value you get, that you were honest to yourself and who you are. And then other people that click with that, there might be just one or two, but those two people, they get it. and they love your message and they're inspired by your engineering posts. And suddenly, as you start to share more and more posts, and I'm using posts as an example, but it could be anything. It could be getting good grades. As long as you're putting the best version of yourself out there, you're not just the student who's just passing by the skin of his teeth or her teeth, but you're immersing yourself in the engineering culture. You're taking extra classes and you're doing projects on the side of projects, and you're mentoring other students, and you're following the footsteps of other mentors, and you're doing all the stuff. You're really letting your brand shine, and through that, you can suddenly cut through the noise of the 7 billion people out there, and through that, you might start to find someone that you might click with, and maybe you can build something with this person before you become that rock star. That's a total possibility. So I'm not saying that you got to wait till the end of your days when you're finally successful and retired that you finally start finding someone. What I am saying though is, you really owe it to yourself to go through the phase of being nebulous, which means like everything's cloudy and confusing. Go through that almost on your own. Have friends and mentors, but don't start to add more responsibility to your plate along the way. You will know you are ready, not when you think you are or because you think you deserve you are. There's so many times in my life when I thought, oh, I'm ready. I figured this stuff out. I'm ready. But I was too afraid to share my message. And I wasn't ready to make my message public facing. I wasn't ready to start making these unfolding destiny videos and podcasts. It's now that I kind of have a really clear presence of mind and self that I'm able to start putting this message out there. I feel more whole and complete than ever. And anything else external, the money, the fame, the success, I mean, it's cool. But as long as I've shared my message, I think I've kind of done my job, and everything else will take care of itself. And I want you to know that when you can finally truly become public facing with your message consistently, that's when you're ready to start at least entertaining other things in your life. But at least at that point, you know who you are and what your life is, and you know what you should and what what you cannot bring into your life. You don't want to destroy yourself by being with someone who has nothing to lose, especially when you have everything to lose. So I want to finish this off, and I know I've been going, but when I get going, I get going, and this is my passion. I love talking about identity. I want to share with you some words from one of my favorite books of all time. And just to show you, just to prove it to you that I love this book, I mean, it's by Fred Allen Wolf. It's called The Dreaming Universe. And look at how many bookmarks I have in there. There's a lot, right? I read this book like twice. I've outlined it. This is phenomenal. So I started this off by saying that I don't believe in soulmates. I don't think that they really exist. I think that there's people that you have different degrees of compatibility and chemistry with, and as you go throughout life, you can start building towards more experiences with life with a person or certain people, things like that, right? And in many ways, life is incalculable and unpredictable, but I do want to share a passage from this book with you, and you might think that it contradicts what I said in the beginning, but it's not that it contradicts. I just want you to know that this whole thing about life is deeper than you can just sum up in a couple words. So let me share this passage. So in this book, Fred, or the Dr. Wolf, he's a physicist, a quantum physicist at that, he shares this quote. It's about Schopenhauer. So he says, if you look at human psychological and spiritual modeling, you will find evidence of this "it's all a dream" idea. For example, Joseph Campbell, in talking about this concept, wrote, Schopenhauer points out that when you reach an advanced age and look back over your lifetime, it can seem to have had a consistent order and plan, as though composed by some novelist. Events that, when they occurred, had seemed accidental and of little moment turn out to have been indispensable factors in the composition of a consistent plot. So who composed that plot? Schopenhauer suggests that just as your dreams are composed by an aspect of yourself of which your consciousness is unaware, so too your whole life is composed by the will within you. And just as people whom you will have met apparently by mere chance become leading agents in the structuring of your life, so too will you have served unknowingly as an agent, giving meaning to the lives of others. The whole thing gears together like one big symphony, with everything unconsciously structuring everything else. One great dream of a single dreamer in which all the dream characters dream too. Everything arises in mutual relation to everything else, so you can't blame anybody for anything. Powerful words. And then on another page, Fred goes on to say, in my normal life, I only feel this presence at rare times. He's talking about this energy, this interconnectedness. I feel it with certain people who come into my life. We will be together and we will feel some kind of connecting energy, some kind or resonance, some kind of knowing when I can't know this person, but there's a deep sense of this. When this happens to me, I begin to feel this again. It is more a question of awareness rather than blind belief. My greatest joy of being alive is when I have that awareness. Then the fear is gone. The hole in my chest is healed. No sense of loss or abandonment. Everything is peaceful. And I try to kindle that with everyone I meet. It is not always possible. I seek it out in whatever form it will take. I can't predict what form it'll take. I found that it does arise spontaneously in many different parts of the world for many different reasons. I can only take it that I am the universe, even if that is only a dream. So these are the words of a physicist, and the reason why I share them is that life is complex, and you might someday find that path, or you might bump into a person and you might feel as though you may have known them for your entire life, even though it was just in that moment that you met. You might feel like an energetic bond or connection. And I guess what I'll say is that, yeah, you're experiencing a degree of compatibility, and that's cool. See where it takes you and everything like that. Don't be so attached to it because you don't know where it might lead, but just be in the moment. And if at some point you feel like you found that this person is your soulmate, call it that. You can give that a title. It's fine. But it won't be until you get to the point at which you yourself have resolved everything within yourself and you figured yourself out and you know yourself and you're living your path and you're at peace with the decisions you've made for yourself in your life. It doesn't happen in reversal, or it doesn't happen in reverse. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel. Thank you. It's always been a pleasure. Have a great one.